News 24. We're still coming to you live from the ROC. That's the IEC's Results Operations Center. We are still tracking the outcomes of the 2019 general elections and speaking to politicians just to find out what do they make of the results, what do they make of what South Africans want. It's very important to understand the numbers, but to also understand the psyche and the thinking of the politicians behind these political parties. Joining me at the moment is the ANC chairperson, national chairperson, Mr. Gwede Mantashe. Also, now I think you're former minerals minister for now. Pelile, it's over and done for now. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
It's still quite early in the game in terms of the numbers, but you've looked at how the ANC is polling. I think the most important thing is how would the ANC fare? We're already seeing it around 55%. What do you make of what you're seeing in terms of the numbers?
You know, Sidi, we go out, work hard, campaign, and what we're campaigning for is to be given a mandate to govern. The shape that is on the board looks good, we can improve, but the most critical issue is the mandate to govern. If we can get the mandate to govern in all the provinces and nationally, that is good enough. We're not shaping well, quick enough in the Western Cape.
Which is not a surprise, really.
In the Western Cape. It's a surprise not to win a province after you campaign.
But you haven't been winning the Western Cape for the longest time.
But you campaign all the time. When you campaign, you want to win it. And when you don't win it, it's a surprise. Okay. Now, if we would have got the Western Cape and got everybody, the numbers become the bonus. It's an extra gift on what you are campaigning for.
While you say that, I want to ask you a lot of questions around what you just said now. The first question is, then you're satisfied with how the ANC has campaigned. I mean, it's been one mass apology on the one part, but on the other side, people have seen it as lackluster, saying, you know what, it looks like all political parties are almost fatigued already. They came into the season almost tired already. Are you satisfied that the ANC had given it its all?
I always get surprised by observers when say, you're not doing enough, you're not doing enough. And when I wish I can take all of you, do it with you, door to door. You know, you move from one house to the next.
I've covered many ANC door to doors this season.
You stand there, you cover them. I want to walk with you into this house and go to the next house and you cover 15 kilometers in a day, but you can't see the distance because you're moving from one house to the other. And everybody says, no, it's not as exciting. It can be exciting because it's voter conduct that is important. You talk to a voter. The most satisfying thing in campaigning is when you walk in the house and say, go out, don't come here. We're voting party X and we don't want you here. And you say, please, can I ask a few questions? And after 10 minutes, they say, okay, right, we'll consider voting ANC. Then you get up and you leave.
So you think you've done more than enough? That's definite.
We've worked hard.
Chair, you speak now about how what you're looking for is just a mandate. You know, you're not bothered by numbers.
It's not just. A mandate is not just.
What is a mandate beyond just a mandate?
You never call a mandate just.
What is it?
Because it's serious. Just is.
Of course it's serious.
No, just reduces it. Yes, when you say just, you reduce it.
Okay.
But when you say we want a mandate to govern, that's what elections are about.
Of course.
Elections are about a mandate to govern. It will vary from the Eastern Cape to Limpopo, to the Western Cape, to Northern Cape. It varies. But what we want is to govern everywhere we can because we want to serve the people of South Africa.
So a reduced majority is irrelevant?
Reduced majority is an indication that we should do more. That's what it does. But I doubt if we're going to fall below where we went. And many people talk about 62%, and I say to them, that is a lazy analysis.
Okay.
In 2016, we dropped to 54, CD. In 2014, we dropped to 54. The local government is governing. It's governing. We dropped to 54. We must pick up from there. If we pick up beyond 62, we've worked real hard. But we dropped to 54. People don't want to realize that because they know it's local government. That's where we dropped to. And we must pick up from there. It was too narrow. It was too much now. We lost major cities.
You did.
And we must look into whether we've recovered in those cities. That is important to us.
So as we speak, it's standing at 55% for you. You've done better already as it stands. Without the full numbers.
No.
You're saying in 2016 went to 54.
Yes.
If you're standing at 55, that's already a satisfactory number.
We're not going to stay at 55. We're 30. 30% of the results are
I
out.
did say we're still here. I understand that it will change. But if it ends up at 55,
the point I'm making,
I'm hearing
I
you.
want you to hear me. properly.
Yes.
I am saying we have dropped to threatening levels.
Yes.
In 2016, went down to 54%. We lost every major city in Gauteng. We lost PE. Those are the actual indicators that we're going to look for. Have we recovered in Tswana? Have we recovered in Johannesburg? Have we recovered in Neguruleni? Have we recovered in Port Elizabeth, in Nelson Mandela Bay? Those are indicators. But the reality of the matter is that campaigning is about mandate to govern.
Okay. I'm going to move on for that. The stalwarts of the ANC and many others, former presidents, have come out asking the country to give Cyril Ramaphosa an overwhelming majority, saying for him to do the things the country wants him to do, to get the ANC right on the right path and doing the right things, he deserves an overwhelming majority. That idea and that plea has been read by a lot of people as he needs help to navigate the factions within the movement.
That's your interpretation.
That's many people's interpretation. What I'm asking you about that particular interpretation is, does these kind of numbers then give him that? Is this what's going to allow him to fix cabinet, to fix the lists, to fix the issues that have gone wrong within the party?
Cyril Ramaphosa is the president of the ANC. In terms of the resolution of the 52nd National Conference of the ANC president is the ANC candidate for presidency.
Yes, he is.
Once he is the president of the ANC and win, there is that resolution. I want you to go back to it. 52nd National Conference in Pulugwan. It says to him, you have a prerogative, but don't just exercise that prerogative willy-nilly. You do it after consultation with the organization, which means it imposes another responsibility, that he will talk to the organization, will go to the status of the organization, and he will put together a cabinet. He has a prerogative. It doesn't say in consultation, it says after consultation, you can exercise your prerogative. And therefore, he will put together the cabinet, he will consult the organization, it will be the cabinet of the ANC, not just a merely cabinet of Cyril Ramaphosa. He will lead that team, and he must get the best team. And my argument is, what he should be looking for, he should be looking for performance, and capabilities.
But I almost feel I'm struggling with you. I'm almost struggling with where you're going.
I want you to
but I want you to respond to the questions and the concerns around the factions in the ANC. While I hear your point about what the president's prerogative is.
Can I tell you why I don't answer a question about faction?
But you must, because it's
now,
there.
let me tell you why I don't answer those questions. Because faction is as old as politics.
I agree with that.
You can go to any party, you will find factions. So when you want me to discuss factions, you want me to get into an academic debate, because factions are as old as politics. They are in every party. You can go to the Labour Party in Britain, you'll find them. You can go to the Conservative Party, you'll find them. It's the nature of the beast.
While I agree with you, Gwede,
yes.
While I agree with you 100%,
yes.
Then the ANC has a task of being unified. You're on this journey,
yes.
right?
Yes.
And then in the middle of campaigning, factions seem to get a hold of your campaign, where you start hearing claims that people's phones are being bugged. That almost says to South Africans that this issue, this battle within the ANC, where the Star Wars said there's a battle for the soul for the party, is bigger than even trying to campaign and focus on that mandate that you said was so important.
But bugging cannot be an ANC issue.
Well, it's an ANC issue when an ANC leader claims the head of state, who's an ANC president, his state is bugging their phones. Surely that's part of the issues.
Is the state of the
that he's running, or the republic, but he's in charge of. It's his mechanisms.
No, it's the state. If the state is bugging, and that case is reported, it must be investigated as a case and dealt with. But if we're going to stop governing, try to sort out bugging and factions, the country will come to a standstill.
The ANC has done that to us many times. We wouldn't be surprised if it did it again. Bring the country to a standstill over ANC issues. You've done it.
One time I was talking to one man, I won't tell you the name, for fear of being sued. This man comes to me, he says, he's not a friend of the ANC. He says to me, you know, half of what you see in South Africa was built after 1994. But the ANC is not saying so. Okay. So if everybody feels that you've done this wrong and that wrong, I know that people refuse to notice that we've also built the country.
Another question that comes up quite a lot for South Africans are claims of a push for an early NGC. Claims that there's a plot, as soon as Ramaphosa wins, gives the ANC another chance. Don't shake your head, let me finish. As soon as he gets a chance, there are people within the ANC who would like to see him get out of the way. Just what is the reaction from the ANC about such claims?
CD,
Yes.
you know, when you run an interview on the basis of all the rumors that are all over,
We can't ignore them.
wait, you are going to be misdirected. Do you know that an NGC can't change the decision of a national conference?
But it reviews them, right?
No, it doesn't.
Including whether or not the president is performing.
No, it cannot change. Actually, no president can be removed by a national general council. Do you know that?
From what I understand, though, you can have a motion of no confidence in the president from there. Can you not?
It can happen in parliament. It can happen in the ANC.
So once he's there, he cannot be touched.
The president is there. There are only two methods of changing the president: is to go to a conference or ask for a special conference, and that requires an application by the majority of the provinces. Okay.
So Cyril Ramaphosa is safe.
He's the president of the ANC. Safety.
He's safe in his position as ANC president.
He is elected in the conference of the ANC. The next conference is in 2021.
So Cyril Ramaphosa is safe till 2022.
2022.
He's safe until 2022. That's what you say to the country.
There is a president elected by the conference in 2017.
Yes.
There will be elections in 2022.
So no matter what the attempts are, he is safe.
I don't know what
head of the
attempts you're
ANC.
talking about. I'm telling you about a formula. If you are not happy with him, only a majority of provinces can actually ask for a special conference, and that special conference can take a deliberate decision. There is no NGC that can do that. It doesn't matter who brings that in the it won't work. It has no capacity to do so because the conference is the highest decision-making structure of the African National Congress.
Okay, I'm going to give you a parting shot. The ANC wanted a mandate. It looks like you're well on your way to another mandate. What are the big things to win over South Africans? I mean, part of the argument now is that in the next elections, the ANC will not just stroll through, will not win easily. It might become more difficult. And we've seen a downward trajectory of the party. So it might be more difficult in the next general elections. But now you have another chance. It looks like you have another chance coming your way. What are the big things?
There are many things, but the key thing that we must get right is local government. Yeah, if we tighten our local government, we strengthen the leadership, we strengthen the bureaucracy there, the ANC is home and dry. Many of the things that have been raised in this campaign are all local government issues, all of them, with no exception.
And just to quickly, you just touched on something that now this is really my parting shot. So Julius Malema says actually everything must be up in the air after these elections. The EFF foresees negotiations, including all over again for municipalities. What's the ANC's attitude to such a suggestion, saying actually let's go back to the negotiation table and negotiate everything all over again, including the position and the states of the municipalities as they stand?
I think they should come forward with that because they gave power to the DA, and it shocked me. But today now DA has a poster that says vote against ANC and the EFF.
They're very emotional about that poster, yeah.
Vote against the ANC and the EFF, but it's their coalition partner. And if they want to discuss about that, we're ready to.
You're ready to discuss it.
Yeah.
All right. What would be your terms? There's the ANC. What does the ANC want? Because the EFF had already refused in the past. If he says let's go back again, you say you're ready. What does the ANC want in order to get its municipalities back?
Now you want to facilitate discussion from News 24.
Why not? I've got the opportunity. I can start it now.
Why should we do that?
Just give me one or two things that the ANC wants. Why can't you give me one, Che? One yana?
Only one thing that we don't like. We don't understand how can the economic freedom fighters gave power to the Democratic Alliance to run Tshwane and Johannesburg. It does not make sense to me.
It was done, but the way forward?
If we change that, that is the only thing I want to say.
All right, I'm going to let you go.
Okay.
Thank you for your time
Okay.
and good luck. That was the ANC National Chairperson, Mr. Gwede Mantashe. No longer minister. I'm sure he's hoping to go back to cabinet. We'll see.
We're fired.
Only Sir
We're all
Ramaphosa.
fired. We're all
If he
fired.
goes back into being head of state, we'll make that decision. You're all fired, ne?
We're all fired.
We'll start again after the start of the 6th administration. For News 24, my name is Tidi Madia. Stay tuned to our site. Stay tuned to our Twitter pages. We will be keeping you updated with news here from The Rock here at the IEC in Pretoria. For News 24, again, as I said, I am Tidi Madia. And before I go, though, you must cross over.
Thank you, CD. This is Lize Gatandwa coming to you live at the floor at the Results Center in the IEC in Tshwane. As you can see, it's a hive of activity here. The results are slowly trickling in. And from what I can tell, it's about 5 million votes that have been counted. Now, most importantly, CD, I'm standing with the Good Party, the baby of these elections. This is the national chair of the Good Party, Ms. Ntabiseng Lepogo. How have you been doing? You've been doing very well. It's close. It's very early in the elections, in the vote counting, but you've been doing very well.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much for the compliment. I mean, we've been doing our utmost best. I mean, what we see here is the result of the past 4 months of hard work.
And from what I can tell, do you feel, judging by how you're seeing the results, I mean, you're doing well in the Western Cape, but when you're looking at other provinces and you're looking at national, do you think that maybe it wasn't the wisest choice, the wisest strategy to go to run in all the provinces, but rather you should have focused or channeled your energies in the Western Cape? What is your thinking about that?
Okay, I think we've made a wise decision from onset to decide that we're going to contest in all 9 provinces and nationally as well. And with an understanding that this is not, it was not just a 4-month project as to when we started the party, but it's at the next 5 months. So it was important that we go out there, we're visible, and people know that we're out there. And I think we've done phenomenally in all provinces, obviously being strong in the Western Cape. And we understand that it's because of our leader is coming directly from the Western Cape, and that's why we have made the mark that we have thus far.
And obviously, you would expect that she would take a few votes from the DA. In terms of your strategy in campaigning, what was your strategy in campaigning? And are you happy with the strategy that you had, judging by the results that you received?
Well, we need to understand that our leader, Patricia de Lille, is a very experienced politician, and it's not today she went into politics. I mean, we remember from the likes of the PAC. So it was not a matter of we taking the members of DA. Those members, they belong to us. You know what happened with the coalition. She didn't go alone. She went with a constituent. So basically, they followed her, not only because they like her, but they understand the service of delivery and the care that she has towards the communities and the whole citizens as a whole.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was Ntabiseng Lepogo from Good Party, the baby of these elections. Now, someone who's going to speak to me now is COPE's head of elections, Mr. Zwandi Lehlego. Mr. Lehlego, how have you been doing? How are you feeling?
I'm okay. I'm still fresh, running.
But how are you feeling with these results? I mean, I'm looking at these results, not a good result for COPE.
Yes, we are disappointed, but not out, because number of results are still coming in. It's still at 5 million if you check on the board now. So there are still number of results that are coming. There are still areas that have not yet been counted, and we hope that as the Congress of the People will get our votes there.
There's been a lot of talk about glitches in the IEC's voting process. And those talks, smaller parties have been crying about these processes, and even the DA calling for an audit of the results. What is your take? What are your party agents saying to you on the ground?
Well, yesterday we received many complaints which we lodged with the IEC. Not just complain, we even went out on our own way and do investigation. Our chief whip in Parliament, Deirdre Carter, she moved around and collected information. And she came back to say, it's possible that people can vote more than thrice or twice in different...
Using WhatsApp. Communicate.
We don't have the necessary.
Welcome back to News 24 Live. My name is Adrian Basson and we're coming to you live from the National Results Centre, the ROC, or the Nerve Centre as some call it, from Pretoria in the municipality of Tshwane, which is now governed by the DA, of course. Joining me again, Dawie Scholes, our elections analyst, and Ralph Matega, the smiling political analyst. Ralph, welcome, Dawie. Good to have you. Gentlemen, let's just quickly cast our heads to the back, where you're seeing the National Elections Board, the big results. About 5.2 million votes have been counted, have been declared. That is in the first place at the moment. We do have the African National Congress on 2.8 million votes, followed by the DA on 1.2 million, and in a rather distant third position, the EFF on 460,000 votes. And basically, gentlemen, that is it. Those are the top three parties, and it almost seems like we're moving to some kind of three-party state. But we can touch on that now. The big surprise of the day, as we have reported on News 24, is the Freedom Front Plus. Freedom Front Plus now standing on 153,000 votes. Now, just to put that into context for you, in the 2014 national election, the Freedom Front Plus, after all the votes were counted, received 165,000 votes. They are now on 155, and we are on almost 35% only of votes counted. So, Dawie Scholes, there's still a big opportunity for the Freedom Front Plus to grow.
Absolutely, and if I look at the projection right now, we are actually predicting that the Freedom Front Plus are going to win 506,000 votes in this election, which is more than
Incredible.
a tripling of the 2014 number, and by the way, which is more than their 1994 high watermark, which was something like 480,000 votes. So this is the most votes the Freedom Front Plus will ever have, or ever have gotten, and is a really extraordinary outcome from their perspective.
Fascinating. We must go into that on why that is happening. But as I said, we are about 35% of votes declared. Of course, News 24, with our wonderful model that Dawie built for us, has already projected this morning that the ANC will win this election. They will win the national election. They will come in under 60, below 60. Dawie, maybe let me start with you. What is your screen telling you, your magical spreadsheet? Where is the ANC sitting currently, and how do you think that outcome might still change as we get closer to the 100% mark?
So right now, as we speak, the ANC is at 56% of the vote, the cumulative vote up until this point. The DA is at 25%, and the EFF is at about 9%. And that's something in the 30s voting stations counted, but actually the votes, about 28% of all votes have been counted. Now, at this stage, we're projecting...
Let's just recap that. ANC 56%,
yes.
DA 25%,
yes.
and EFF on 9%.
Yes, that's the running total at this stage. Although we think that by the time all the votes are counted, the model is currently projecting that the ANC will end up at 57.1%. The DA at on the dot 22%, so that's actually a little bit below their 2014 showing of 22.2%. and the EFF up to 9.5%. And then interestingly, as I just said, in the fourth place we'll have the IFP, 3.5%, and the Freedom Front Plus coming in fourth place at a surprising 2.9% of the vote. Yeah. So that's kind of where we're projecting to at this stage.
57, 22, 9/10 for the EFF.
57.1.
57.1. Rolf Matega, if you were President Cyril Ramaphosa right now, the leader of the ANC, would you take 57.1%?
I'll throw a big party. I mean, if you look at the mere fact that the president of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa, admitted that of the whole wasted 9 years. I mean, we just spoke to the chairperson of the party, Mr. Mantashe. Of course, he said that it's not necessarily 9 years, it is 4 years. So within the ANC, there is an agreement that there are serious concerns of transgressions in the last few years. So if you get 57 actually, if the ANC you end up at 57, you can actually look up the opposition in their eyes and tell them you are weak. You have not done anything. I've done this because of my own goals. I've ended at 57 because of my own goals. It's not because the opposition has been strong enough to inflict, I would say, a dent on the electoral base of the ANC. I mean, 57 from 62 minus 9 wasted years. Adrian, I think it is the best performance for the ANC.
But Rolf, let me just challenge you on that a bit. There are still Jacob Zuma supporters in the ANC, right? In very senior positions in the ANC. Will they not turn around and say, hey, Ramaphosa brought us 57%, took the ANC to below 60% for the first time ever, lower than Jacob Zuma ever got?
Of course, I don't think the hardliners within the ANC, when I talk about the hardliners, I'm talking about President Jacob Zuma's fans. I don't think they will...
Let's name them, Ace Magashule, Jesse
Duarte, and some who might have served with President Jacob Zuma during that time. Partially the current chairperson of the ANC, Mr. Mantashe as well, 1 foot in Zuma's administration and 1 foot out.
Is he Mantashing?
Well, he asked me, what are you going to say? And I said that I was going to say the ANC should be exceptionally happy if they get that 57%. But you're correct what you're saying, that there is no way that Mr. Ramaphosa will be credited for anything here. They will most likely blame. Had the ANC attained over 60%, they will not actually credit him. Those people that we are talking about, those that are known to be his detractors. If he fails to win the election, of course, I don't think the ANC will fail to win here.
I don't think so.
Well. But had he failed to win the election, they will blame him. This is a game where you cannot be credited for victory, but you are to blame for some of the problem. It's just how it is now.
I think, Davi, you earlier said quite prophetically that this is an election of losers. There's very few winners here. In fact, the FF Plus may be the only one. I just want to stay with you, Rolf Matega, for a moment. A few months ago, more than a year ago, we were sitting together at Nasrec, end of 2017 December, when the ANC elected Ramaphosa as their leader. Now, at the time, there was wide consensus that people like David Mabuza, who is now the deputy president of the ANC, moved their votes to Cyril Ramaphosa because they really believed that he would get them a great win during this election. They didn't believe that Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma would have done the same. Do you still agree with that?
Oh no, even looking at it now, I was just talking to someone in the morning that had Dlamini Zuma won the ANC internal contest, we'll be talking a different story now, Adrian. I mean, there's a possibility that the ANC could actually struggle to make that 50+1. And I think where things are now, there is no doubt that the Ramaphosa factor played a bigger role in neutralizing the ANC's decline. I mean, we are talking about election of losers here. It's about how you manage the loss. And the ANC, I think they should credit Mr. Ramaphosa for being able to hold that loss, maybe to hold it above 55% if it ends up at that point. That is the Ramaphosa factor. And some people might say that the ANC would have done better if it would have gotten that 55, 57 without Ramaphosa. I really don't think so. People are angry. Look at the turnout. The turnout might reflect that ANC core voters are the ones that are actually mostly disgruntled with their party.
You know, we've now studied quite in a lot of detail how the ANC has underperformed the 2014 number, right? So it is true that Cyril Ramaphosa has done worse than Jacob Zuma did in 2014. But he is doing better than Jacob Zuma did in 2016.
I wanted to go there.
So we're
remind
halfway
us-
between the two. Right?
Remind us what happened in 2016.
Yeah, so I think in 2016, two things really happened. The one thing is a terrible turnout scenario for the ANC, so a lot of ANC voters stayed away. And I think on that one, Cyril Ramaphosa is actually kind of doing as poorly as Jacob Zuma did in this election. So there's still a very large number of ANC or former ANC voters who didn't go vote in this election. Turnout is anticipated to be very low here, and mostly ANC voters who stayed away. But the more interesting one is in the black electorate, the core kind of portion of the electorate that supports the ANC, it's kind of nuzzling right in the middle, in between the 2014 level for the ANC and the 2016 level. So in 2014, for example, in Gauteng, the ANC...
That was a national election.
National election, the ANC won about 78-79% of the black vote. They were down to 69 in 2016.
Yes, and that was a local government election.
Local government election, sure. But that's why they lost Tshwane and Johannesburg. Right now, we have about 20% of the black electorate in Gauteng in, so it's not done yet, but a lot of it is in. They're at 75, 74. So they're more than 69, right? Ramaphosa has recovered some of the losses in the black electorate in Gauteng, but still under the 2014 level. So I think, there's a debate to be had to how big a success it is, but I think there is some extent of success here.
How big the election celebration party must be, so to speak,
I think they must take into consideration the context here. I mean, it's not just the number here. It's about where does the party come from? What we have seen in the last few years, the socio-economic tensions that exist within society, that resulted in the formation of 90 more new political parties as well. Of course, there is some opportunism, but I think that if you compare this election to any election in the post-apartheid scenario, I would say maybe the most tense elections might have been, in comparison, the first one, if you like, where nobody knew what was happening. Of course, we were expecting the ANC to win. But now I think we are back at that point where there are divisions within the ANC. The turnout could also be affected by just the branch problems. The ANC uses branches to campaign. If you go to Northwest, for example, where the ANC is divided, you go to KZN, what that means is that branches are not actually firing at all cylinders, and the ANC relies a lot on the strength of its branches to get people to go out there. I mean, I drove around Gauteng, I drove to Limpopo, and I was just looking and watching what was happening in Limpopo. You see more posters of the EFF on the bridges in a manner that you actually start suspecting. I mean, that's my personal view here, Adrian, that do ANC members work for the EFF at night? How does the EFF get such a muscle to put so many posters on the bridges? Mukopani, you drive along the N1 as I was coming, you go to Sonobarwana, further down, far north towards All Days, you find the EFF so present there. And
well, even if that happened, Rolf,
problems.
listening to David, it didn't work out because the ANC still kept their majority in Limpopo. In fact, slightly dropped, and the EFF slightly grew, but the ANC still won that province on our model. I just want to end our discussion on the ANC by asking you this. Is Cyril Ramaphosa safe on 57%?
Oh, it is the best position. The most dangerous place for him to be is if had this party gotten 60% or below 50%. Below 50% is a crisis. Above 60%, the party doesn't need him to continue with his public relations work. 56%, it means that the mandate of the ANC as they went into the election with the manifesto has not had an outright approval. It means his approach as a diplomat will work because it's all about how he nuances the policies of the ANC, how he negotiates with various stakeholders in society. So the best place for him is below 60%.
If we can look now at the results of the top three parties so far, we've got that in a graphic. So let's just move to the Democratic Alliance, Davi. The Democratic Alliance you project at this stage will come in on 22%, which is 0.23% less than in 2014. Now that word "less" is the one I want to emphasize here.
Yeah.
Look, is this a tragedy for the DA?
Look, I think let's just say one thing though. So it's 22% of the projection. There's maybe 1 point margin of error either way. So they could still come in above. They could still come further below, right? Which are both distinct possibilities. I do think this is a very significant challenge and problem for the DA. I think there will be extremely serious questions about why the Freedom Front Plus was able to siphon off 500,000 voters from the DA from its base, and what went wrong in that happening. And then I do think that there will be a long-term leadership discussion about what happened in 2017, 2018, in the run-up to this campaign. Tough years for the DA, which, arguably were very badly managed. I think the 2019 campaign, by objective standards, seemed to have been well executed and well planned and well led. But the 2 years preceding the campaign placed the DA in a very difficult position coming in here. So there's going to be a discussion about this, and
It's going to put Musi Maimane in a very tough spot.
I think he's going to be under pressure one way or another.
Let's just talk about where the DA has lost votes, okay, and where they have suffered votes. So that discussion is the Freedom Front Plus growing discussion, right?
Yeah.
There's no some other major place, like there's not a massive sway of DA voters that's gone ANC, for example, that you've picked up in your models.
No, so I do not see any evidence of a large number of former white DA voters in suburban areas voting ANC. So I think there was some discussion about that possibility. I don't really see it in a big way. So that's the one. I mean, look, marginally, right? Maybe 1 or 2 percentage points, but really not a lot. What I do see is a little bit of good votes in the Western Cape, right? So 5 or 6 percentage points of the coloured vote in the Western Cape going to good. That's a little bit of an impact. And then I think the biggest one is the conservative white vote going to the Freedom Front Plus in a big way, particularly in the northern part of the country.
In the northern part of the country.
Yes.
Now that is interesting, Davy, because if you had asked me who the DA would shed votes to, I would immediately have said Patricia de Lille. I mean, that's the one that comes to mind. There was a big fallout for the DA, months and months of bad press around the poor handling of the Patricia de Lille situation. It seems not to have been the big one. The big issue seems to be white voters, and let's say what it is. I don't think the Freedom Front Plus will even deny it. White voters in the northern part of the country, where there's farming land, moving to the FF Plus. Rolf, do you think the land debate comes into play here?
I think that voters are very smart. South African voters are very smart. I think they look at the EFF and they look at the DA. They say that, you know what, you can't rely on the DA to counter the EFF, for example. You look at the internal coherences of the DA, and if you look at the extreme that you see, I think it pushes people further towards the Freedom Front Plus, because this is just a countervailing to try to deal with the domination of the EFF. The challenge here with the DA is that it then says to them, go back to the drawing board after these elections. You have to rethink about the opposition style altogether. How combative do you need to go? Do you need to formulate a new position on BEE and on affirmative action? Don't try to dilly-dally. Say you want it or you don't want it.
Don't be such a broad church that you kind of lose your walls and your...
And that is how Freedom Front Plus got it. You can disagree with them. They are saying that, look, our job is to try to stop the radicalism on the left, which we believe impact upon the civil liberties of our core constituency that happens to be the Afrikaner communities. They're actually saying that, look, you are lost within the DA. Come here, we will protect you. The DA is it's in no man's land, if you like. Unfortunately, if the big opposition parties in terms of the numbers come out of this election not being very clear, it actually says that, to use the IT language, are you rebooting the whole opposition system, if you like? I don't know, it could be pointing to that.
I just want to say, I do think there is a risk in overreacting to this particular outcome, right? So the DA has lost maybe 2.5 percentage points or 3 percentage points of the electorate now to the Freedom Front Plus, and that is damaging, and it's creating a bad electoral outcome for them in this election. But they now have a strategic choice to make, whether they want to reposition to somehow try to recapture this 3% that they've lost, which has a theoretical optimal benefit for them of 3% in the electorate, right? Or to just accept it and continue on the path they are on, which is basically to move towards becoming a social democratic party, and play in the rest of the electorate, which is 60% of the electorate, right? And the theoretical optimal there is potentially much, much higher. So that is the strategic choice that they have to make. Of course, the second choice is a difficult thing to do, and there's a lot of work required, and has risks associated with it. But I think that is the difficult strategic debate they need to have now, and also why perhaps this is difficult for Musi Maimane, but not necessarily the end of the road, put it that way.
Yes. Ralph, do you agree with that?
Well, you know what?
Come on, guys, we need
You know
some
what?
debate.
It's if you don't grow as the DA now, when are you gonna grow? After that whole wasted 9 years, when do you really get to a momentum when you can grow? The challenge here for the DA having to sit down and reflect soberly after this, they could not even handle some of the major policy problems going into these elections. And I'm really struggling here as to, are they actually going to position themselves? There might be a split, and I think I will agree with the risk of mismanagement or misinterpretation or panicking on the side of the DA on how they deal with this. If you are in opposition, you have positioned yourself in relation to the ANC, you have got Ramaphosa coming out, they are stranded. What kind of an opposition are you going to exert against President Ramaphosa for that matter? They can wait. If they don't grow, they can park and try to find a way to come back, but no one is waiting for them. There are other opposition parties that are actually pointing to the DA saying that, you know what, you are not even a legitimate opposition party for that matter. You are not really there. You are not actually influencing the narrative to that point. So
I also think that
no one will wait for them.
Indeed, and if you look at the trajectory of the DA's amazing growth over the past few elections, there was definitely some kind of expectation that they will increase their vote. Exactly. But I'll leave the DA there for the moment. We will return to them, but Rolf, I want to come back to you, and I have the same question with a different party, the EFF this time. If you are Julius Malema, would you take 9.5%?
The EFF are the master of public relations. They can take that 2% growth from 3% growth
3%,
from
6.3.
They exaggerate it. You know how they do. Actually, already they are punching above their weight, if you like. So they will take that. If I'm Julius Malema, I've been exaggerating prospects of growth, and I'm being humbled to 9%. You know what do? I then said that, hey, look, we have been grown. We have not been rejected by the electorate. We're the one that should be on the path of figuring out how to grow further. Whereas, compare with the DA, they have shrunk. Remember, the EFF electoral, the results, as far as the EFF is concerned, it matters a lot in relation to the DA. That 9% will become huge for the EFF if the DA fails to get just 1% or 2% of growth. But if the DA can show at least, even if 3%, a face-saving 3%, they can then manage how the EFF will interpret their 9%.
Davi, can I maybe just cast some aspersion on your brethren and sisters who do polling? Because the EFF has polled over 10 consistently for the past few weeks, even going up to 15% in one of the polls. Yeah. How did we get it wrong? How did they get it wrong?
How did they get it wrong? I think that, in election campaigns, particularly in South Africa, there is something very dynamic that happens in the last week of the campaign, and it is just a fact that, and if you've worked on a campaign, you would know this, that numbers shift in the final week of the campaign. So I have some sympathy for pollsters who release polls 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks before an election, because things really do shift in South Africa the week or two before the election. The ANC has its Yankoba rally, etc., and it shifts numbers. So I think, to some extent, to me, it feels like the EFF was, as I say, a bit squeezed towards the end of the campaign, particularly by the ANC. That's the one thing. The other thing I'll say is, I think no one could have anticipated how low turnout is in this election. The model is currently projecting 65% expectation for turnout. It was 72% last time. Everyone was talking about 70, maybe in a low scenario 69, 68. This is extreme stuff, right? And there was weather and other things contributing to it. And I think the EFF are maybe the kind of like unwitting casualties of that, because we know that their vote is the least likely to turn out. And so in a low turnout scenario, the EFF is most likely to be hurt most. And I think to some extent that has happened. So there are some contextual factors. And again, a lot of pollsters had it at 10 and 11, and they're currently coming in at 9.5.
Yes, it may still end over 10.
That's entirely within the margin of error, right?
But it's not going to double
to
13.
So, and not in our model. I mean, I don't see, I could maybe see 10.5, Or maybe if I'm a little bit wrong, 11. But anything beyond that, I think would be very strange.
But Rolf, it's still the only of the top three parties that will grow in this election. We know
Exactly.
the EFF will grow, and we know, in fact, that Davi's model is projecting that the EFF will now become the official opposition in Mpumalanga too. So they will remain the official opposition in Limpopo and the Northwest, but also add Mpumalanga to their growing list of provincial legislatures in which they become the provincial opposition. Of course, they would have hoped to achieve 15 or 20%, but this is still a small party. They're still young and they're growing.
It's a small party, they are growing, Adrian, and we are used to the exaggeration of their potential performance. I mean, local government election, they always exaggerate how strong they are across the societies. The EFF is young people and I think vibrant and so forth. But I also think as well here, look at the level of radicalism that they went on. You know, the voice of the voters is also complex. You know, voters sometimes say that, look, we like listening to you when you talk truth to power. We think we have done a great job when it comes to unsettling the ANC. But we don't think you have to be placed in charge of anything. We don't think you have to be in charge of policy. Hence, we will maintain you there at about that 10%. And when you are at 10%, Adrian, you move from 6.25. What do? You are at 10%. Do you go back to the drawing board as well? What will it take for you to grow? Do you ramp up the radicalism? Because if they get 10%, it does not necessarily mean that their radicalism has actually been approved. It actually will mean people are indifferent towards that. Do you turn up the heat on radicalism? Start attacking community, you know, they were taking Indians, they were taking this, they were taking
Journalists,
that, journalists and
women.
so. Do you ramp it up, or do you actually think about your offering? Do you moderate on your offering? The EFF will have to get into that kind of a conversation.
So Rolf, there's a theory on the floor out here at the coffee bars when we go to get our caffeine to keep us awake because we didn't sleep a lot, that in fact, if you just zoom out a bit and you look at the projection of the final national result, the only two parties that would have grown are the EFF to the left, let's just call it left for now, and the Freedom Front Plus to the right. And I've heard murmurings about a new radicalism in our politics, about radicals on both sides chipping away at the middle ANC and DA bloc. Is that, would you go with that kind of analysis?
I really would, because if you look at what is happening at the center, political parties that are at the center of our politics are not picking up very well. And when I talk about the center, you are talking about the DA. It's not an extremist party. It's a practical party that wants a better strategy to implement some of the ANC policies, if you like. It's a center party that pursues incremental policy, I would say, maneuvering, if you like. And you have Freedom Front Plus growing on the extreme. You have the EFF growing on the extreme. I think that indeed it shows that we are moving far from the center when it comes to our politics. The policy differences are becoming more and more entrenched. Listening to Freedom Front Plus here and also listening to what EFF is saying, these are parties that are throwing ultimatums when it comes to politics. My way or the highway, I don't want to hear that, and that's how they work.
But we must also not over-exaggerate that, right? If you look at the numbers, because what Davi's telling us is the ANC might end on 57%, the DA may end on 22, 23%. That is 80. That's almost 80% together, right?
Yeah.
Generally,
the two parties, I guess, that we can call central, will still take about 80% of the vote.
They will still dominate, no doubt about it. And if I were to say, to what extent have this election reflected on radicalism that is permissible within the society? I'll say the society said no to radicalism at the center, but we still want you to be part of the politics, to speak to the center.
And that brings you back to your earlier point, Davi, that the reaction of the DA and the reaction of the ANC to this result will be the big test now.
Absolutely, but I just want to say something substantive about this idea of a weakening center, is that I just think that there are a couple of things we mustn't overlook. If you look at polling and you ask people, is South Africa on the right track or the wrong track? Vast majorities, and I'm talking like vast majorities of ANC voters who went out in millions to vote for the ANC, say South Africa is on the wrong track. If you look at the turnout data, there are millions of South Africans who are registered to vote but who decided not to vote. There's also millions of young people who could have registered in this election who didn't register to vote. So I just think that yes, the centre is holding to some extent, and I'm not fully bought on this argument that we have this radicalisation on the side. But I think the bigger risk is maybe not radicalisation, but just disengagement. Is that if you look at the number of people that the ANC, the number of votes the ANC is going to win in this election, the model is projecting 9.9 million votes. That's 9.9 million people of a population of 58 million, right?
Of a voting population of around 30 plus.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a level of disengagement and frustration, and I think frustration with substantive lack of progress, which I think does forebode some risks for the central parties and frankly, particularly for the ANC as the government.
It's such an interesting discussion because again, there's two sides to that one. One of the opinions I've heard out there coming from someone in the ANC is, well, it's a maturing democracy. If you look at other mature democracies like Germany, the turnout is very low. It's under 50%.
And elections are not doing with high margins.
But obviously we are not a developing country with 100 years of elections. The majority of this country only started to vote 25 years ago. So it is an indictment on the ANC in the country that there is a low turnout. I want us to just quickly, in closing of this very interesting discussion with you guys, tell you what I've experienced on the floor there. So just to bring our viewers into the picture, we've got a little table. Each party that was on the ballot paper has got a little table, like a little school wooden table with 2 chairs. Okay, it's the big equalizer down there. So the ANC's got the same table as Agang SA, for example. And it feels a bit like a graveyard down there. I just did a walk before coming up here, and the majority of the parties there, either the tables are empty or they're being occupied by people who don't belong to that party, or the people are just staring kind of blankly in front of them. And there's only some interesting activity around the ANC's table, around the DA's table, around the EFF's table, and a lot of smiling white men around the Freedom Front Plus table. So it feels a bit like a graveyard down there. Davy Scholes, is this the final funeral of the small parties?
No, absolutely not. I mean, the Freedom Front Plus is.
No, I'm not counting them. They're not small.
Okay, so it depends on how we define small.
If we look at this, so let's just look at below the Freedom Front Plus. The IFP is currently on 1.7%.
Yeah.
The ACDP on 1%, and then it goes into the zeros.
Yeah, exactly. So like the Agangs of the world, the Copes of the world, even the UDM. The NFP,
yes.
I agree. Like I do think that those parties have, if you count in Freedom Front Plus and maybe Good and IFP, the other parties I just think are kind of facing oblivion, basically, right? I mean, I think voters will ask themselves, what is the point of these parties, right?
Yes.
What have they actually achieved in our democracy
Yes.
in the last 25 years?
And Rolf, isn't this a signal from the voters? They don't want a ballot paper that long, as long as your leg. They want fewer options, and they want us to move to a system with fewer options, maybe more ideologically grouped.
I think we will naturally get there. The sign of a mature democracy is consolidation of issues across very, very fewer political parties, other than the long ballot that we have. But Adrian, have you seen the ballot paper at the DRC elections? I mean, really,
No, I haven't.
it's in the range of hundreds and more and more. So I would say we are consolidating. There are 3 parties that are coming out, and there are small ones that are challenging those 3. There is still competition in South Africa as to who is the rightful opposition parties. We are going to see that taking place. Even after this election, I think that will be one of the sustained contests among opposition parties. As time goes by, I think when issues settle down, when political identities even consolidate in South Africa, you will have fewer political parties. We are not there yet.
Davy, just to end with, we've got 2 big outstanding projections from you, Gauteng and KZNY.
We need some more data from Gauteng's townships. So big townships, Soweto, not enough numbers for that yet. We need to crunch those. Having said that, it's looking really close to 50.
For the ANC?
For the ANC now. So the ANC is definitely the biggest party.
Over 50.
Yeah, so it's kind of like the ANC is just going to clip 50, just be under it or just be over it. So I think we need to crunch some numbers to find out exactly where, and get some more data. And then I think the same story for KZN. You've just said the IFP is only on 1.5% or something. That's because there's a huge amount of votes in rural northern KZN that we just haven't gotten yet. We need to get that data to figure out how this thing is going to shake out in KZN.
So you're not ready to put your head on the block for those two provinces?
Not quite yet. No, give me a couple of hours.
Rolf Matega, Davie Schools, thank you so much. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in a bit. Keep your eyes on News 24's live elections coverage. And do speak to us. Tell us if you think we're talking nonsense or if you've got a burning question that we haven't addressed. Tweet us at News 24 using the hashtag SA Elections 2019. Bye for now.